Hello, everybody, and welcome to one of our T2+2 webinars. Today we will be talking about easy access licensing, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it is, and then we'll talk a little bit about how to use it, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. My intent in these webinars is to run about half an hour to 45 minutes, so we don't take up a lot of time, but we hit the highlights and give you plenty of time for questions and answers. And I am talking about half an hour to 45 minutes in total. Okay, so to begin, I should say I'm Phyl Speser. I'm the founder and CEO of Foresight. And for those of you in the university sector, I'm a former Autumn vice president. Next. There we go. Okay. Oh, one thing on this first website, I forgot to, go back to the first slide, that I forgot to point out is you can see, this is the first time I've used this. I'm sorry, I can't highlight on it easily. You can see, there's a pen. You can see here that there is right under here. There we are. That's the website for the Easy Access Coalition. Easy Access, the history of Easy Access is it was invented at the University of Glasgow by Kevin Cullen, who is now a vice president of Autumn and down in Australia. Wonderful guy, great sense of humor. And Kevin had an incredible epiphany, which is if nobody's licensing it, why don't we give it away free? Because most university technologies do not go to market. And so this was the solution, was to come up with a very simple licensing agreement that would let it go to market. Okay, what is, oh, well, that was stupid. Now it stays on every screen. How do I
trash it? I think.
Erase all drawings, good. So now the question becomes, what do I mean when I'm talking about easy access? It's aligned with what's in general going on. First of all, easy access is a plain English, legally binding contract. A license is simply a contract. Licenses are sort of, from a legal perspective, sort of a hybrid between contract law and property law. But it's a license. It's written in everyday English. That's very important because we want people to be able to use it. And if they can't understand what's going on in the contract and they have to hire a lawyer, they're not going to do that. In this plain English license, the owner of the IP will grant specific rights, and we're going to talk about what these rights are, to the buyer in exchange for consideration. All contracts need, under the law, consideration. And what consideration means is that both parties are giving something of value to each other. Now, what the buyer is giving is the buyer agrees to perform certain tasks and duties, and the owner is giving the IP rights. The other thing that's really important about easy access licenses is there's no money or minimal money that changes hands. There is a variant where you're doing downstream royalties if it really takes off, but in general, these are no money licenses, which means, and we'll get to this a little later on, you have to deal with these very efficiently because you're not making money on them. You're meeting your university or your tech transfer office's mission of doing social good, benefiting people, getting stuff out there. There is some due diligence, but it's going to be minimal, obviously, because you have no money to do it with. And the core on what the buyer is doing is agreeing to either make money or do something good. And then after that, if the buyer, there is, in an easy access license, the owner, one of the rights that the owner can give across is obviously rights protected by patent. But under easy access, there's no promise to patent or to maintain a patent if there's out there. And if the buyer wants that, or if they want a non-exclusive, more than a non-exclusive, they're going to pay for it. And finally, there's no sub-licensing. Okay, let's look at what each of these terms mean. When we talk about IP, For those of you who understand the difference, and for those of you who are in the United States or in a British Commonwealth legal system, we have two forms under which IP is secured. One is statutory. That means there's a piece of law that was approved by both houses of Congress, signed by the president, and it says, thou shalt have these rights, or it's in the Constitution and implemented in laws such as patents. Statutory rights in the U.S., the key two important ones for us here in easy access are patent and copyright, although you could do trademark as well. Common law rights are different. Common law rights have to do with two things. One is copyright. The other is trade secret. There's also common law trademark. And common law is the law of judges and courts. So all you have to do is act like it's your property, protect it like your property, and common law automatically applies in the U.S. Now, the important thing about this in the context of easy access is what we're really doing is we're dealing with trade secret. These are know-how licenses more than anything else. Now, when it comes to what rights we're transferring, it's no different than any other legal agreement. There's the right to make, use, and sale. There's field of use. There's time. And then you get into exclusivity and non-exclusivity within the field of use or overall. What we're doing is we're granting the full bundle of rights as long as the buyer or the licensee continues to meet their obligations. They get this full bundle of rights in perpetuity usually. And there is a non-exclusive agreement. So what is the buyer agreeing to do? The first thing they have to have is a reasonable plan for doing good or making money. What do we mean by a reasonable plan? That means when you look at it, you don't laugh. It has face validity. Face validity is just a straight face test. And so as a professional, you read the commercialization plan and you say, yeah, that might work. I don't know if it's 100% sure it'll work, but it appears it'll work. And then the buyer has to begin that plan once the license is signed and remain engaged in a good faith effort to do so, because if they stop doing it, they lose their rights to the technology and their license ends. And finally, they have to report honestly at scheduled intervals as to what's going on. Are they making progress? Do they see opportunities or obstacles? How are they going to exploit these? How are they going to overcome them? And you need to do this if only to protect yourself, because you want to maintain and accelerate the progress under the plan and create other supplemental benefits. Pretty obvious. Now, obviously, the one thing I haven't highlighted in this is you will have clauses in there that say, you know, we warrant nothing, we guarantee nothing, the standard boilerplate that protects you, written in one or two sentences, because the long legal clauses and licenses are overkill, done for the purpose of explicitly doing overkill. But in an easy access license, since the consideration is so minimal, you can get away very reasonably with a straightforward plain English statement that says, we warrant or guarantee nothing. All of this is done at your own risk, in big bold letters. Caveat emptor, which means let the buyer beware. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you protect yourself so that you don't get hauled up before your administration or somebody for doing something horrible. And that's the problem of due diligence. It is my belief that the way you do this is you put the burden of due diligence on the buyer primarily. So you want the buyer to provide a credit report, a corporate history with appropriate documentation. You want to see their articles, the thing from the Secretary of State of the state they're incorporated in that says they are a company. You want to, you want to see something that says you are in fact the president of the company and authorized to do this. You want similar documentation for the responsible individual. Have you published anything? Is there anything about you that's important? Any claim that they make in their resume, they should be able to sustain somehow with documentation. Not every little thing, but the big things that stand out and say, I worked for Lockheed for 15 years. Okay, can you provide a letter from Lockheed that said you worked for Lockheed for 15 years? You want at least 3 credible references so you can call up and say, is this person a flake or is this really true? And finally, you need permission to contact the providers of the documentation and the references. You want to be able to provide, contact the providers of the documentation because you want to make sure that the credit report is real and so on and so forth. And then you want to do two additional things, which is the first is what I've just indicated. You need to somehow validate the information is accurate and the references are positive. You don't have to validate each little thing, but you need to validate enough to know that the guy's not pulling or the woman's not pulling your leg. And then the second thing is you want a non-confidential interview that involves both your inventor and somebody from the TTO. Now, obviously, they are going to want to do this too, so that's sort of a no-brainer. I would recommend that you do the due diligence before you can give them some limited information, but before you bog down your faculty with a bunch of people who are interested in easy access, you make them jump through some hoops to make sure that they're serious. Okay. Now we come to when you use easy access. I'm going to talk a long time on this slide because this is sort of the meat of what we're doing. The real point here is it's the wrong question. We should not be asking when do you use it. We should be asking when do you not use it? And the reason for that is we know most university technology does not go to market. And of the technology that goes to market, approximately half of it will make under $10,000, which means it's not worth your time to license it. You lose money for your institution by licensing it. I'm a little old-fashioned. I'm also a little old. And I don't think it's appropriate for TTOs to lose money unless we are explicitly focusing on how do we do good. I have a series of blogs I'm writing about this in the T2+2 blog. But the point is this. If we try to shove every technology to market using the existing methods we do, of course we're going to lose money because any person in business knows that before you launch a new product, you do a calculation on that discounted cash flow and you say, am I going to make money at the end of this or am I going to lose money? And if I'm going to lose money, I probably shouldn't do it from a financial standpoint. Now in the for-profit sector, and the key words are for-profit, that means you're not going to do it at all. In the nonprofit sector, it's different. In the nonprofit sector, you may elect to lose some money, but you have to elect to do it consciously, not just by default. One of the problems in our TTOs is we're losing money and not consciously losing money where we want to lose money. So what does that tell us about easy access? Well, the two places we're not going to use it is where we think the technology is going to have a high value, meaning the net discounted cash flow projection is positive, and we will make money off of it. And the other place we'll use it is where it has a very high strategic importance for positioning the university or the other institution that you are in. And by strategic importance, what I mean is this. Most universities have areas of strength. What you want to do is build your brand name. So you're going to give more emphasis initially to areas of strength when you're commercializing out of your portfolio of IP, because that's where you will not only get licenses, but you will get corporate sponsorship. And you will probably make more money off of corporate sponsorship if you're like many institutions than you will off of your licensing. And when the students go out and if you get startups and spin-ups, then downstream they may make donations. For example, Lori Lokay, the founder of BusinessWire, went to Stanford University. BusinessWire is a very large press release company, was bought by Warren Buffett. Lokay is one of the world's great donors today. And so a few years back, he built a couple of stem cell research centers for Stanford. One donation for that stem cell research center to build that was more than Stanford brought in all year in their licensing revenue. So that's what I mean by high strategic importance. places where you can leverage the license to accomplish other goals. Now, it may be that if you're in a state institution, a land-grant university, economic development is very important. So it may be that there are areas that are important for your community, and thus putting emphasis on those areas has strategic importance for the university. So a variety of factors that go in there on how you define strategic importance, but hopefully you get the idea. Now, what happens with everything else that's not there? First of all, most of this technology we know is not going to make much money, as I said before. And the other thing we know is a lot of it is never going to go anywhere individually. Because in order to put a product together, you really need what we call an IP kit. And the IP kit is all the little necessary pieces of IP in order to put it together to have enough to protect the property. That is where a lot of the technology in your portfolio becomes really important, because there is trade secret and existing patents that can be used by others to build fences around the products that they are developing. Another place easy access works very well is with companies who are interested in SBIR. Foresight has, as some of you may be aware, I personally wrote the SBIR law and was the lead lobbyist. I was invited to the signing ceremony in the White House, met President Reagan during that opportunity. I also wrote the STTR law with Roland Tibbetts. And then Foresight has been an SBIR commercialization support contractor for almost every, I believe every agency, but almost every, if not every. And one of the things that comes through loud and clear when you deal with SBIR companies is they hate dealing with universities, because the timing is different on how things move, the amount of legal review that's necessary is a cost that makes it difficult for an SBIR company to acquire the university technology. So our current system is a barrier to moving technology into SBIR companies in order to spin it up. An easy access license with a royalty rate kicker, if the technology takes off, is a really good solution for this kind of problem. And it gets you around some issues that you would otherwise have to deal with, such as, is it okay to give this company itself a license because we're taking it off the market and other people can't use it? In this case, you're not saying you're just giving this company a license. You're giving it anybody who wants a license to the same technology, which they will then hopefully bring consulting revenue to the faculty member in order to extract more of the know-how. And also to the institution, obviously. The benefit is we don't have to go through and do sort of a stage system where we give them a research license to use for research purposes with a license, with an option to license it in phase 2 if they win phase 2, or at the end of phase 2 when they're ready to go to market. We get rid of all those hurdles. We just have a nice simple agreement we can go out with most SBIRs that are dealing with technologies that are typically, again, not high value and not high strategic importance for the positioning of the institution. So you're in a situation where you now are a SBIR friendly university, and you can use that kind of thing when you have an easy access program. And it's very easy to get who the awardees are from the agencies over the past several years, and you start sending out every time you have a new easy access license. We'll talk about how you promote them in a second, but you're sending this out to SBIR, your mailing list of SBIR awardees, particularly phase 2 awardees, since they're more likely to win again in phase 1. So for me, the key thing with easy access where we use it are, we're emphasizing areas where there's SBIR potential, or potential for somebody to get some money from a state program or something else. We're using it where there are technologies that are relevant for our economic development mission, but are not really money makers or tied with the strategic thrusts of the university. And then we're using it for the stuff that we just don't know what to do with, that's left over. And that's the stuff we're not pushing as much. Okay. So how do you make it work? The very first thing to make it work is to make it foolproof and automated up front. What do I mean by this? You should have on your website your easy access license, your due diligence template, your commercialization plan template, your template for reporting, and people who are your licensees should be able to get a little login. Some of them will be open and some of them will be login. And they should be, if they just applying for a license, they should be able to submit the stuff up front, everything together. And if they're interested in, and once they get a license, they should be able to log in and just electronically report it on your website. It's a form, they fill it out, it comes down. They don't do it, it's, you know, you have it's set up, any piece of portal software, SharePoint, any of the commercial ones will have the ability to send out emails on time for things when a deadline's coming up. And you set it up so it does that. You should also on your website have examples of exactly what you're looking for, because novices learn by patterning on things. So if you say, this is what we want you to submit, here's one or two examples we've made up, here's how we want you to report, here's one or two examples, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this is all self-entry by inventors. You need to get your technologies out there and point people to where your technologies are, and this means getting them out to more than just your website. So you got to get away from your own TTO, because most small companies are not scanning around. And by the way, easy access are primarily going to individuals and small companies. You don't need it for a big company, really. Although some of those may use it as well. You can limit it only to small companies and individuals if you want. But you post it like to the Autumn GTP. WIPO has a website, an online marketplace, and there's a number of other places with online marketplaces that are out there that are credible, iBridge and so on and so forth. So you want to post it to these places that, hey, we have this new technology, here's our non-proprietary description. The other place you want to do is you want to be proactive with social networking. And so you want to post it to the relevant groups in LinkedIn. You want to post it to the relevant professional societies or trade associations, and you want to hit the bloggers. Now, the important thing when you look at this, how do you make it work, is you say, none of this is an activity that requires anybody who's on this webinar, because you can make it work with interns or clerical staff. And this is another problem we have in TTOs. We tend to think, well, we're professionals. We need to be the ones doing everything because, you know, we're smart and we know what we're doing. But this is just shoving paper around or doing promo. And you'll find that young people who are in marketing classes are probably much better at the promo in this kind of a world, this online world, than some of us who are directors of TTOs or ward directors or are older. I'm in my 60s. If you're in your 50s, you're already passé in some ways. So we're looking for young people who we can leverage through work study or internship programs, and they can set up your forms for you. They can do the posting. They can do the social networking. You only need a trained professional to do the plan review. They can even do some of the due diligence, like calling up the companies and saying, or the credit bureau and saying, you know, I want to confirm that this, you know, credit report 3976 that says company Schlickelheimer and Brothers actually had made a profit last year, you know, and so on and so forth. Now you have to manage interns, but we've done this stuff with interns ourselves at Foresight, and they're very, very good at this kind of work. So the point being that we can make this happen pretty much as a low budget or off budget activity other than the actual review of the plan. And the good news for you is when you're at the point where you're really reviewing the plan and you need to get into it, somebody's gone through enough steps to say, I am seriously interested, or they would not have submitted this stuff. Now, I want to calibrate some expectations before I shut up. Do not expect that you're going to make massive numbers of licenses doing this. Downstream, maybe if you're lucky and you build a curve, you can. But in the early years, you're not. What it is going to do is give you an opportunity to do something you have never had the ability to do before. You will be able to say to every professor or faculty member or grad student or student who is submitting a disclosure because they use university resources or are by contract, employment contract, obligated to do so for whatever reason you've got this technology, you're going to be able to say to them, we have a system to move this to commercialization that is commensurate with, what you've done. So every technology now gets commercialized. Nothing goes in the bottom drawer. Why is that important? It's important for two reasons. First of all, you never know what's going to hit. I've been in this business for almost 40 years. And I can tell you, I have seen some technologies that I thought were dogs, and they went to market and were big. My great example of stupidity on my part is the fax machine. I was on ARPANET. I was one of the first people on the internet. And when I saw the fax machine come out as an invention, I thought, what a stupid idea. Who would take something off their computer, type it, get it printed out, put it in a machine to send it to somebody else who has to re-enter it when you can just FTP it. But of course, I lived in this little narrow world and I had my blinders on. And the fax machine hit bid. And it's only now that it's sort of disappearing. So it gives you an ability to move everything to market. And if you are concerned about revenues, you put that little clause in. If the revenues exceed, 300,000, 500,000, a million, whatever your benchmark is, you start paying royalty rates. Secondly, the faculty members now have an incentive to give you the next disclosure because they haven't been told, oh, that one's no good. So it's a positive reinforcement for your faculty members. And that is very important because it builds the rapport between the university and the faculty member, and they can then go out and you can send them back when it is out for social networking. You can send an alert to the faculty member. Your intern can do this thing. We've just posted it. We're hopeful we're going to get some responses. Be aware that you should be, let us know what your schedule is so that if we do get responses, we can arrange things where you can talk to people. If you're going away, let us know, so on and so forth. So that gives you a quick overview on easy access licensing, when you use it, and how you make it work. And I want to open it up to questions now. Or discussion. I mean, you're welcome to say whatever you want to say. This is our time to sort of collectively talk. So if anybody has anything they want to say or type, we can do it again. Whoops. No, she left. Okay, well, if nobody has anything that they want to add, I'm going to thank you all for coming, and then we're going to start doing this on a more regular basis. We're going to try and keep this short, quick format. Please send your suggestions in if there's things you would like us to talk about.
We'll also be recording these and